ever felt that you have nothing to wear standing in front of a closet filled with clothes? Clothing hauls, outfit challenges, what all I wore for my vacation are some of the most trending content on social media these days. But today we'll analyze the trend to find out the actual reality. Good evening, I am Subhadra Srivastav, welcoming you to yet another episode of Jan Jankar. In this podcast, we will dive deep into the dark reality of the shining world of fashion and trends. Let's begin our exploration by understanding the phenomenon of clothing hauls. This trend involves fashion influencers showcasing their recent purchases from various brands, highlighting each item and providing detailed reviews. Similarly, outfit challenges have become hugely popular among fashion enthusiasts these days. Influencers create unique challenges where they assemble outfits based on specific themes or constraints or adhering to a particular color scheme. Another popular category within this trend is the practice of wearing a different outfit for a specific period, such as 7 outfits for 7 days, 30 outfits for 30 days, or the widely known 365 outfits for 365 days challenge. However, this is important to acknowledge that owning such an extensive wardrobe is uncommon for an average person. In reality, most individuals do not possess that many clothes, right? Nevertheless, the illusion created by influencers showcasing numerous outfits in their content often compels people to believe that they too need to amass a vast collection of clothing to replicate their influencers. How healthy this new trend of clothing hauls, OOTD, or what all I wore for so and so occasion really is. When I say this trend is completely unsustainable and pollutive, I mean it encourages the wasteful practices of overconsumption and disposal of clothes. It creates unnecessary peer pressure on individuals and even plays with the human psychology, fueling our destructive addiction to fast fashion. We know there's a difference between the world of social media and the real world, but people tend to forget this difference. This growing frenzy for fashion has led to various fraud sites coming up and people getting scammed. The problem here is that all the images of clothes that you are exposed on social media are highly curated and edited. Sites like Triple S, Tops and Tunics, and many more promise you a product, but it rarely reaches you, and even if it does, it's not worth your money. I think if you are constantly being presented the false information or information that is biased, your schema becomes biased. It does not represent the real world. At this point, we become susceptible to the good old-fashioned FOMO, fear of missing out. According to a recent report, most of these influencers who display their clothing hauls actually return their clothes after shooting videos. Can you believe it? But having said that, it isn't the fact in all the cases. A lot of what you see on Instagram still has tags on. Have you noticed? And why? Due to the pressure to be constantly featuring new, available, and likable styles, somewhere along the line, buying and returning becomes a commonplace. However, I feel it hardly costs these brands anything. What's more important, I think, is that there should be transparency at least. You might feel a bit sad if you are buying your favorite blogger's or vlogger's favorite new skirt only to find out it was back in the hands of the post office the very next day. Here the question arises. If these influencers are promoting fast fashion? And the answer is sadly yes. It is quite evident. We know this is the age of social media. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. Social media influencers have a huge impact on the human psychology. Younger audience tend to get influenced faster, and that's what we see is happening today. A research conducted in the United States in 2021 suggested that we are buying 60% more clothes today than we did 18 years ago. Now let's come to the most important part of this podcast, fast fashion. You may ask if it is impacting the way we think and perceive clothing, and what are the bad impacts of fast fashion on the society in general. How this overconsumption of clothes is being promoted, I say. Clothes have become more like a status symbol. Mainly, if I go and blame an influencer, he or she might become defensive and say, I'm just trying to be a fashion inspiration, right? But that's not how human psychology works. A YouTube channel named The Sustainable Fashion Guru says that one thing these fashion influencers don't realize is that by promoting fast fashion, they are inherently promoting modern slavery, the exploitation, the environment destruction, the climate change that's being caused. It further adds that as a part of the fashion industry, you can't feign ignorance. It's because it's your responsibility. And I couldn't agree more. Fast fashion is generally low cost, but the effect these low costs and limitless choices have is overconsumption. It is estimated that only 4% of textile waste gets recycled, and they mostly land in landfills. Materials like polyester are made up of plastic fibers that take nearly 200 years to decompose, and 75% of our clothing, surprisingly, contains synthetic fibers like these that cannot be broken down. So, what can we do about this problem? The truth here is that the amount of clothing we buy today is unnecessary and avoidable. The best way to combat fast fashion phenomenon is to discourage these fashion brands from overproducing, as they rely on the cooperation of consumers. We need to change our perception of clothing. Viewing clothes as investment rather than replaceables is the key to stop this harmful trend. With this, we come to an end of today's podcast of Jan Jankar. And now, after being served the reality of this new trend of fashion hauls, promotions, and bloggings, we will leave it to you to decide for yourself where your inclination lies. I would end this podcast on a note that think of your clothes like your groceries: quality, organic, locally sourced, and good for the environment. This is Subhadra Srivastav bringing you valuable information and scanning new trends. Thank you for tuning in.